Please rise as we call on Pastor Nate Oldenkamp of Lutheran Brethren Homes to lead us in our invocation.
You join me in prayer. Father, we thank you for calling us here together. We thank you for this place, this community, Lord, that we serve. We thank you for those called here, all in leadership, Lord, interest in our community. We pray that you bless this meeting this evening, Lord, that you provide guidance, that you provide wisdom to what happens in these proceedings tonight. And we trust the guidance of your Spirit, Lord. We believe you are here among us, and thank you for this time. We pray it in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Well, it's 5:30 on April 3rd, 2017, and I'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Rachel is absent. Hoover.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Spino.
Here.
Hicks is absent. Hafford.
Here.
Fish.
Here.
We have a quorum. First item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda, and Andrew, would you like to address that if there's a couple additions and
Yes,
corrections?
Your Honor, members of the council, we have to remove two items this evening. The land sale, which is item number 2 under ordinance and resolutions, needs to come off. And then also item number 6 under the consent agenda pertaining to the YMCA lifeguard agreement. We have a little more work to do on that before we can take action.
So it's assumed that both those items will come in probably 2 weeks.
Yeah, you'll see both those items again, yeah.
Any questions for Andrew? Any other corrections or additions to the agenda?
It's a question. I don't know how to address it. Perhaps our attorney can have the wisdom to do this. But we have, in the minutes, we have the trail, the pedestrian cycle group. And in their minutes, they say that the BJ's property is going to be developed for a trailhead. In previous minutes, we have approved from the Public Works, Your Honor, it says that the BJ's property was intended to possibly use the trailhead, but that there would be options of other sites brought in before we decided to develop the BJ's property. So all I'm saying is we have kind of these two conflicting things happening in the minutes from that we would approve. You know, one's from the bike, the PedX thing, and other is a previous. And all I'm wanting us to do is clarify. I have the motion here that, you know, and so whatever we talk about the trailhead, I'd like us, Your Honor, to remember that the recommendation is that the Public Works recommended considering this site along with others that may be recommended by the North Country Trail Town Committee as a trailhead, and that's what was passed in the minutes in February as a council approving what we do when we go forward. So if there's clarity on that we would look at other sites, and it would be the North Country Trail Town Committee that's involved in that regarding BJ's, then I'm fine, as long as that's clear on any action we take on that property. We were going to tear it down, that was clear, we all agreed to that, but we wanted multiple options. I don't know how to state that, I don't want to mess it up, I just want it to be clarified.
I would suggest that you perhaps just have that clarification as a motion for tonight's meeting to be memorialized in tonight's minutes.
Okay.
So perhaps make that motion.
Yeah, I would make that motion that this just be clarified and we pull that from,
So
that we pull, it's already in our previous minutes, Lynn has already recorded it from the Public Works meeting.
Just a motion, just directing that there be notation in tonight's minutes that state what you just stated to clarify the position of the council
Yes.
on the BJ's property.
Okay, I would move that we do that sometime in the meeting.
I'll second that.
there's a
Your Honor.
second. Let's go ahead and just vote on that motion right now. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Now we need a motion to approve the agenda as amended by the removal of those two items. Jim?
I'll offer that.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Brent. Any further discussion on the amended agenda? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Our first item of business is we'll need a public hearing on a business subsidy policy hearing. Amy Baldwin.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This evening, action is to hold a public hearing regarding the amendment of the city's business subsidy policy. On March 20th, the city council did call for a notice of this public hearing to be held this evening to consider amendments for awarding business subsidies as are required by state law. Our current business subsidy policy includes some provisions that are from outdated statutes from the state of Minnesota. And so over the past several months, staff has researched some other communities' policies and prepared an updated business subsidy policy, which has been provided to you. We've had attorney review of that policy to ensure that it is consistent with the requirements of state statute. Inadvertently, these copies of the statute were not included in your packet, but they were distributed to your chairs this evening, so you have copies of the statutes that are referenced within the policy. I'll take just a few minutes to overview what is included in the proposed policy, and then we could open the public hearing following that. So there's some background. So included is just a table of contents that looks at purpose and authority of this policy, and what is the authority of the city to have this, and as what is provided through the state statute. A note in that section that we reference those statutes so that if there are future amendments to the statute, it doesn't impact the current policy that we have versus trying to pull in the current requirements within statute and incorporating them as they get updated into our policy so that it remains current from a statute perspective. There's an outline of various criteria that indicates that any business subsidy that we would provide must meet a public purpose, and there are a number of them outlined here. It's not just looking at job creation, it's looking at other redevelopment or tax base increases, supportage of our existing business community, a variety of different purposes that would be used to review any requests for subsidy. It also looks at how you value a business subsidy, so whether it's a direct cash benefit or a reduced interest rate on a loan, there's different ways of looking at that, and how you would determine the actual value. And then I think a key section for you as policymakers to think about and look at is the evaluation section, section 4. And that just notes that we would look at any request on a case-by-case basis, and there's an application form to be completed for anyone who is seeking to receive this type of assistance. It also notes that even if you meet the criteria indicated in the subsidy, it does not automatically indicate that a subsidy would be approved. Every application is looked at on a case-by-case basis, and does need to meet at a minimum a public purpose, be in conformance with local plans, ordinances, provide documentation that the subsidy is necessary for the project to happen, and that it enters into an agreement that meets criteria and the state statute. So, and then as well as a number of other conditions. So before it would even come before the city council with a business subsidy, we would have reviewed for these various criteria and be able to use that in our recommendation to the policymakers in the potential award of a subsidy. And then it again indicates that you enter into an agreement. There's state reporting that the city needs to do whenever there's a business subsidy provided. So this outlines also that there would be that information would be provided back to the city so we can make that reporting happen on an annual basis back to the state. The previous policy was also included for your reference, and I'd be happy to answer any specific questions, but really the purpose of this is we're required to have this policy by state statute if we're to award business subsidies, which we do on occasion, and we just wanted to make sure it was current and up to date and in a format that maybe is a little more user-friendly as we look at potential applications for this type of assistance. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or open up to the hearing now.
Anyone on the council have any questions of Amy? Thank you, Amy. If not, we will open the hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to this issue, please step to the lectern and state your name for the record. Seeing no one, I will close the hearing. And now it's back to the council. We'll need a resolution accepting the amended business subsidy agreement.
I'll make that resolution.
Brent offers that resolution. Thank you, Brent.
I'll second, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justin. Any other questions of Amy? If not, roll
I have
call.
a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Rod.
As far as, Andrew, from your standpoint and the transition we have on this from the old policy, do you have an opinion on that?
No, I think, Your Honor, members of the council, to be in line with state statute, we have to make these updates, and I think this, based on other communities' policies that Amy and Gordon reviewed, falls in line with what is acceptable in this arena, and I think it's a change that we have to make. So I'm comfortable with this policy as presented.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Rupert.
Yes.
Arneson. Yes. Thompson.
Yes.
Spiegel.
Yes.
Capper.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Resolution is approved. Thank you, Amy. There are no bids to award this evening. Under petitions and communications, next we'll have the oath of office and the swearing in of our new fire chief, Ryan Muckout. So bear with us here. So please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the policies and procedures of the Fergus Falls Fire Department.
Do solemnly swear that I will support the policies and procedures of the Fergus Falls Fire Department.
I will faithfully, honorably, and to the best of my ability
I will faithfully, honorably, and to the best of my ability
protect the safety and lives of my fellow firefighters and citizens
protect the safety and lives of my fellow firefighters and the citizens
whose care has been entrusted to me, so help me God.
whose care has been entrusted to me, so help me God.
Caleb? You are now duly sworn in as fire chief for the Fergus Falls Fire Department.
Thank you, members.
No, I know which one you're thinking about now. Yeah. Where you should
We'll lead you to your
Brian, do you want to take just a couple seconds and introduce yourself to the community?
Don't go away. Where's the little boys going?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Fergus Falls alongside the other members of the fire department. Just, I guess, a quick introduction, my wife Kaylee, and then two sons, Eli and Aiden, and, which are maybe excited to become an otter compared to being a rebel, but yet to be determined. He is wearing his Otter Pride shirt today, though. Just with the big happenings. So yeah, we look forward to many years in the community, and again, thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thank you and welcome to all of you. Welcome to Fergus Falls. And I have to say, those new fire uniforms sure do look sharp, don't they? All right, next item under petitions and communications is a proclamation for 30 days of biking. There is a copy of the proclamation in the packets. I will not read the entire thing, but I will say that whereas 30 Days of Biking works to make bicycling accessible to all people and contributes to Fergus Falls' growing reputation as a bicycle-friendly community. Now therefore, I, Ben Shire, Mayor of the City of Fergus Falls, do hereby proclaim April 2017 to be 30 Days of Biking Month in the City of Fergus Falls.
Question?
Please do, Tom.
How many of the council members are currently signed up for the 30 days of biking?
There? Yeah. All right, good. All right. Well, it's going to be a good month to get out there and ride your bike. Open forum. There is no open forum this evening. Under the consent agenda, you have a copy of the consent agenda in your packet. And there's also, we'll put one up on the screen for those in the audience. Just note that item 6 is being removed from the consent agenda, and we'll bring that back 2 weeks from now. Are there any other items anyone wants pulled from the consent agenda or wants to discuss further? If not, is there a resolution to accept the amended consent agenda?
Yep. I'll make that.
Rod?
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Rupert.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Trito.
Yes.
Shepherd.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes. The resolution is approved. Under ordinances and resolutions, we will need a introduction of first reading of ordinance 56, 7th series, which pertains to the collection of recycled materials. Guy, did you want to give an overview on, did you have an overview on that or any?
Not really. It just states that we do have a recycling program and we encourage it and just lays out the parameters
What
of
is
different
eligible
materials.
to be
Yeah.
recycled within our city?
Right.
Okay.
I'll offer that.
Thank you, Jim.
Or I'll introduce it.
Thank you, Jim. It's been introduced. Under presentation of claims, we have this evening claims in the amount of $317,696.99. If there's any questions, I'll direct them to our Finance Director, Bill Sonmore. If not, is there a resolution to pay those bills?
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Darren.
I'll second, Your Honor.
Thank you, Jim. Any other questions? If not, roll call, please.
Rupert.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Trito.
Yes.
Shepherd.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Resolution is approved. Under Board, Committee, and Department reports, we have a request for additional bike Sharrow markings. Patrick Hollister and Jake Crone, I believe, are going to address this. Jake's not here, but Patrick, do you want to get us started?
Sure, I'll get it started and hopefully Jake can come rescue me. So currently, I am the secretary of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I was the chair last year. Jake was the secretary last year. He is now the chair. So we switched places in February. Jake was the one who prepared this item, but I was at the meeting where we talked about this. And I also want to acknowledge Wayne and Judy in the back, and I invite either of them to chip in here if they think I'm leaving something out. I think most of you are aware that over the last few years, the city has painted Sharrows or shared arrows downtown, and those serve a dual function, which I'll explain in a moment. Basically, this is a request from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee for the City Council to consider additional Sharrows at several locations, and I saw that these locations are all indicated in your agenda packet, so I won't go through these in detail unless you want me to. But maybe I can just explain a little bit about what a Sharrow is. A Sharrow is the double-hatched markings with the bike symbol, and we have them on Lincoln now, and we have them, I think, on a few of the cross streets in Lincoln. The Sharrow serves a double function. One of them is it's an indication to the motorist that this is an area where the motorist should anticipate seeing people on bikes. The Sharrow also has a function regarding the bicyclist. It's both an encouragement for the bicyclist to take that particular route, and it's also an indication or an invitation to the bicyclist to ride right down the center of the Sharrow. So generally speaking, in the middle of the street. In other words, not in the middle of the street, but in the middle of the lane, taking the full lane, as opposed to feeling obligated to be on the extreme right side of the lane. And so those are essentially that's essentially the dual function of the Sharrow. And so Jake and myself and the rest of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee identified these places as places that we think would be good for Sharrows. And so we're just presenting a request to the City Council that you consider putting Sharrows in these locations.
Thank you. I know, if I remember correctly, it was in 2013 was when we first had the Sharrows, was it 2013, 2014? And I think the initial request for the Sharrows at that time was a much larger area, and we kind of scaled that back to basically the 2-block radius within, or I should say Lincoln Avenue and then some of the side streets is what we kind of came up with. So is this proposal more of like the original entire city-wide proposal, or is are these along designated or proposed bike routes? So, and I apologize if
I'll take a shot at this, and Wayne can comment on this also. I think that there are two organizations. They often get confused or conflated. One of them is the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, which I sit on and I'm representing at this moment, and that is an official committee of the city. There's a second group called Pedal Fergus Falls, which is not officially affiliated with the city. That's the Citizen Advisory Group. And many of us belong to both, although we keep the functions separate. The Pedal Fergus Falls, the Citizens Advocacy Group, they have a master plan or a concept of where they would like to see these types of improvements all over the city. It's on Jake's laptop, and I think that these suggestions that we are bringing forward to you this evening represent a much larger portion of that overall master plan. Did I get that right? Almost.
Your Honor, Your Honor, members of the council, Wayne Hurley, 501 West Birch. Just to expand on what Patrick said, there is a larger concept. This is one component of that concept that would provide an east-west route across the south side of town. And so it would basically run from Pebble Lake Road down Channing Avenue to the new, well, it's basically connecting to West Side Drive near Hillcrest, and then across to the new trail on West Side Drive, and then also to the trail on Tower Road, which then would tie you in with the north-south trail on Tower Road, and then the trails on Lincoln Avenue out on the west end of town as well. So it's not part of a larger concept that was presented previously, but it is part of a larger concept that Pedal Fergus Falls has developed.
Okay, and that makes sense now looking at the map too. It's a continuous, like on the south side. Rod, did you have a?
I think Darren had a.
Brent was first.
Oh, Brent.
Lots of questions.
I'll go.
I'm not a big bicyclist myself, but these lanes that are being put in, are these just for connecting trails that are around the cities, or are they just being put in places so bikes have passage, is what I'm trying to get at?
Sure, yeah, Your Honor. So the concept with the Sharrows is just to kind of identify a network for people that are riding on bikes. It's kind of an expansion. The Sharrows are kind of an expansion of these existing signed bike route network. So if you look around town, sometimes you'll see a green sign that says bike route on it. And basically what we're looking at is to expand on that network. And it's not a bike lane necessarily like we're going to have on Cascade Street, but it's just kind of indicates a route. And so the bike route signs and the Sharrows are complementary treatments to one another. So it's just kind of indicating a route through town.
Yeah, because the only concern that I've had over all these, in the last years are the ones in downtown. You literally hug the center line and you're still riding on the Sharrows. The road, as far as I'm concerned, I feel it is too narrow to have those down there. I'm just waiting for the day that somebody's coming down there on his bike, and the guy on the bike may be fully aware of what's going on, but somebody's going to open a door. Or two cars are hugging the center line too hard where they're going to scrape up alongside each other. Most of the other places, I mean, it's not a problem, but that is one that's been a big concern of mine since I've seen them, because I drive down that road and I watch people driving right down the middle of those lanes. And it's like they're going to pay more attention to actually seeing the bike than the actual lanes on the road. That is the one area that gives me a major concern.
Your Honor. Mr. Hurley, I got a question. Some of these streets that you identify are very low volume streets or dead end cul-de-sacs. What's the standard from your perspective, from other communities for vehicles per day that are required, where a share is required, is there a correlation between vehicle traffic per day, or is it, you try to put as many as you can, or, I mean, what's the standard
Sure.
for addressing the low volume
Yep.
areas?
Yeah, Your Honor, and Mr. Bremseth, basically, sharrows are typically used on a low-volume street, so just as you indicated, that would be where you, and MnDOT has guidelines in their bike design manual. I don't have that memorized off the top of my head, so I can't quote from it. But typically, they do, yes, they do have traffic volume considerations, lane width considerations, and things like that that they use in determining which sorts of applications are used in which scenarios. So for example, if you have a low-volume street that has a 30-mile-an-hour or under speed limit, a sharrow is typically going to be the treatment that they're going to recommend on that street versus a bike lane where they're going to look at something where it's got a little bit higher traffic volume, like Cascade Street, which is why that was proposed that way. So your sharrows are going to be typically, like I said, on a lower volume, lower speed street. So, and that's why they were the recommendation versus bike lanes, for example, on those routes.
All right, who's next? Darren?
Okay. Is Jake able to make the April 17th meeting committee of?
He's outside right now.
I guess, it sounds like we got a lot more discussion on this, so I'm wondering if that wouldn't be prudent to have him come to the April 17th meeting and maybe go through, he's got stuff on his computer, you said maybe you could show us some of these
Yeah, I guess
pictures and go
I
through
can't
some of
speak
that.
to that, but I'm assuming he probably does.
Your Honor?
Yeah, I was gonna ask staff too, if they had, if they wanted to look at this further or make a recommendation at this point. or
I'll
what would
just
you-
make one comment. In looking at it, I think it's 135 additional sharrows that are requested, and that would be a cost of about $5,000 to paint all those. Not currently in the budget for 2017, so we'd have to.
That's for 2 paintings a year? Or is that-
We've only been doing the sharrows that we have right now once a year, so it would just be $49.50, about $5,000 for one painting.
Okay. I see Jake's here too now, so.
And, Your Honor, could I make a comment also on that? The list that was presented to the council was, it can be scaled, so there's a couple different segments that could be looked at. I didn't specifically mention the section that goes from Summit Avenue up Cascade Street to Lake Alice and around Lake Alice. That's another segment. So, I mean, those are certainly scalable and could be split up. The other thing with regard to Guy's comment, I think that one of the things that we probably want to look at with the new placement of the sharrows, and this gets to Mr. Thompson's comment as well, is if we place them in the center of the lane versus in the right-hand tire track, which is where they're placed downtown, they're going to last a lot longer because you won't have cars constantly driving over them all day long. So that might be something that we'd want to consider as well with an application. That way we're reducing the cost for reapplying the paint in the future.
Sure. So just to clarify, Guy, you said that, do we currently have anything in the budget for the existing sharrows?
Yes.
We do.
Yep, that's
This would
built
be
in.
above and beyond, we don't have anything additional.
Right.
Okay. Rod, you had a question to comment?
Well, I think that sharrows are great. I've seen them all over. My only concern is as we now do this process where we go to a committee of the whole and we don't have Public Works and Finance, we don't get to hear from our staff, that we could enact something that causes our staff to squirm or not to know what we're trying to do because we're actually micromanaging or taking over their position. So I don't know, from Andrew's standpoint, or, from our city administrator standpoint and from the council, I'd like us to clarify our process a bit. And I think it gets to Darren's point that first I want to see what's on Jake's computer. No, just your plan, Jake. But I think we should have that, and then I think we should allow it to be looked at by the staff and the finance part, and then on the April 19th, is that what you're suggesting? But it come forward in the future date and let Andrew decide that. That's my kind of general recommendation.
Members of the council, we would have liked to have this at the committee of the whole meeting tonight, but as you all saw, we had a full agenda. Things were put in place weeks before this ever got brought to our attention. And at the next committee of the whole meeting, we've already booked a joint meeting with the EIC and the city council. So there is no time on that agenda either. And we wanted to move this forward, which is why we put it on the regular agenda tonight, because if there's an appetite for this, striping season's gonna be here before we know it. And it would be nice to, or in painting, and it'd be nice to have that from a timing perspective, done with everything else. So that's why I thought it was prudent to put it on the agenda tonight, to get the discussion going. From here, you guys can decide to, we can wait a month until there is time for a committee of the whole to address this, or we can come back at the next meeting with more detail at this level as well. But I just wanted to move things forward rather than, tell the BPAC committee that they have to wait a month before they can come to the council at a committee of the whole meeting. So that's why you see it on this agenda as opposed to the other.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think to your point, Rod, I agree. Like, these are the kind of issues that we're gonna have to work through as far as not having that public works, that hour to discuss some of these things. So that being said, Guy, what is I'm assuming we put a bid out for all of our painting, or?
Staff does the painting. yeah.
Staff does it. And what is they do that when time allows and when the weather allows?
Well,
and-
yeah, as soon as weather allows, they'll start doing crosswalks and we'll get the Sherrills done downtown. So yeah, it'll just be added on into their duties painting duties that they're currently doing.
Sure. Rod?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up then. If that be the case, I would like to, since it was brought, Andrew has brought this, and the staff is competent, and we have to look at the finances, I would just move that we let the staff make this determination, and doesn't have to come up with the committee of the whole, that we let the staff make the determination, and it can come on our agenda next council
Like a
as.
recommendation, maybe?
Yeah, a recommendation, yeah.
Sure.
And that can just be on the, wherever you want to put it on the, the next council meeting. But I think discussing it to me right now is counterproductive, because we can't sit here and ask the staff, at the same time we're asking questions about the extent of this. Plus, if it's a larger plan, which is on Jake's computer, as we know, we would like to know what we're getting into, because we could be continuing to place these things and not be strategic, or maybe there's 10 more proposals coming. So all I'd like to say is, let's not we can't really decide this now, honestly.
I think that there's some good wisdom there, Rod.
Just a little bit to what Mr. Thompson said. I'm a Sharrow user, and because of the Sharrows, I feel safer. I enjoy riding my bike through downtown with my kids because the Sharrows give the automobile traffic a heads up that, hey, there's that this lane isn't just my car lane. This is for bikes too, and so. But I agree with what Mr. Speedall said about letting the staff do their work. I think that it bears exploring a few other options and looking at some different scenarios for it. But I think it's definitely worth exploring.
Yeah, well, as a bicyclist myself, of course, I am in support of the Sherrills. However, I recognize the fact that it's not in the budget currently. Maybe there's a compromise to be had, and maybe like we did 3 years ago, 3 years ago, we identify a big long-range plan, but we can get at some of it in 2017 and maybe not. But anyway, I'll let the staff come back with a recommendation on that. Anything else? Gordon, you didn't have something to add?
Well, I was just gonna, and it was brought up already, is, Sherrills indicate a mixing and not a separation. And so, a bike in front of you in a Sherrill area has every right that a car has. And that's the difference between a separating lane or a remote path.
Sure. Jake, did you have something? I know you, yeah.
All right.
Please do, please do.
Sorry, I got in late. I was dealing with kid issues and stuff, but I trust we had some good representation here. As far as the master plan goes, it's not just on my computer. It's just something that you'd like to look at. You don't have to send the Russians after me to get it. This is easily accessible. This is a plan that was developed first by Fergus Falls a couple of years ago. We had a couple of public input sessions. As to that, we had about a dozen people working on that. And then earlier this fall, we had a joint meeting between Fergus Falls and the BPAC. And the BPAC sort of kind of took that over and formally adopted that as sort of a guiding document for future recommendations that the group is going to make. So if you're interested, I'm more than happy to talk about it with you. It's also it's available on, right now, the Fergus Falls website, pedalff.org. You can click on the link, take a look at it, kind of get a feel for what it is. It's nothing secret. We're not trying to hide anything. It's out there, and it's available for more input. So please do look at that and give it some thought, and then let us know if there's anything you want to talk about with it.
Sure. Thanks, Jake. Any questions for Jake?
Yeah, anything else, please. fire away.
I just one last question for me. So, what was the total number of sharrows that we we're proposing?
I think it came out maybe to be 135, and that's,
Okay.
following the letter of the
And
law.
roughly. But, and then,
Yep.
Wayne mentioned there's the connection on the south side of town from Pebble Lake to the trail, the West Side Drive Trail.
Mhm.
But then there's also up around Lake Alice. And that's
Right.
just chose two different, or, just.
Yeah, the Lake Alice thing, the one block of Cascade Street was just to give some sort of continuation to the bike lanes already on Cascade. We didn't work to get bike lanes striped on that one block segment of Cascade, but we thought we wanted to give some sort of continuity to users of the bike lanes, so that's why we went with sharrows on that segment. And also that segment's a lot less heavily traveled and would be appropriate use of sharrows on that segment. And then just with sharrows around the lake, that was something that had been thrown around for quite a while now, and we just thought it was maybe time to try to pull the trigger on that and get that done, just with the added interest in Lake Alice as a recreational destination, and the fact that we have the sharrows, we have the stencil, and we just thought it might be a nice time to get that done. And the life of those sharrows we expect would last quite a bit longer than the ones downtown, just due to the lower traffic levels, and then, like Wayne said, with the different type of placement on the street, which we would advocate for around Lake Alice, we think that we could probably get several years out of those easily. Yeah.
Thanks, Jake.
One other question, Jan. And this would just be for the staff to think about too, is I'm curious why, seeing grants and things for bike lanes and corridors, why there's no sharrows proposed in front of the high school? Like from Vernon Avenue or from Lincoln all the way up? Or maybe they are and I'm missing it. Is the black line mean a sharrow?
Nope, this is,
And so would it connect somewhere then, or is it just gonna stop at the high school? Like it doesn't connect to East Lincoln? Why is that?
Well, we haven't proposed any sharrows in that segment of town. I'm not sure, what line you're looking at that.
I'm looking at the lines, West Lincoln Avenue has a sharrow, and you stop at the high school?
You got a black and white, it should be just the yellow.
Sure. The orange line?
I can't see the yellow. All right, good.
Change things.
Thanks for that. And the other one is on Fur Avenue. Why don't we run across on Fur Avenue up there with a sharrow?
Well, again,
Is that
not
is that
something
proposed
we're
yellow
doing.
too, or not?
No, that's not proposed.
Because I would like the staff to consider that, Fur Avenue. I don't think Fur Avenue is off limits, right? For sharrows?
You're asking me?
Well, if you're going across the top of town on a bike and you like to have your sharrow lanes, why not use all of Fur Avenue?
Well, Fur Avenue, that was something we explored several years ago, and we tried for some bike lanes there. That wasn't successful, but we ended up, they striped the travel lanes a little bit narrower and kind of have a wider shoulder/parking lane right now that's shared between sort of bikes and parked cars. And at the moment, that seems to be working fine. It's not something we're revisiting at this point.
Well, and this, again, I'm going to be partial to my ward. I'm in Ward 4. And am I missing some yellows going all the way out?
We got lines in Ward 4, don't worry.
Here, Rod, you want my computer?
All right. So you do have, does this go up? Does it like? All right. Can I see the bottom? Bottom. Okay, so this is Channing, and then what's this?
So I think
There's-
what we'll do, and, well, Rod's getting that figured out, is I think we all agree that we'll have staff make a recommendation, and we'll bring it back 2 weeks from tonight, and then you guys will also be
In
here.
color, right?
In
You
color.
got- okay.
It'll be a full color for Rod, and then the council will make a decision at that point with the input from staff, and you're able to be back here in 2 weeks to
Sure.
present again and answer any questions. So, all right, any other questions from the council?
Just a comment to thank the bike and the PIDX for all their work. And you were outside, so I was teasing. My playful manner sometimes isn't always understood. But I was teasing about what's on your computer because your comrade said, oh, it's on his computer.
Yeah.
So I hope you can take a joke on that? Okay, good.
Good at taking jokes.
All right, thanks, Jake. Thanks,
you.
Wayne. Thanks, Patrick. Judy, thanks, guys, for what you do. All right. Reports from staff and administrative officers. Gordon Idukovich is going to give us an update on the revolving loan fund.
Okay, we have a loan that's being considered for AAA Properties LLC. They're going to lease a building and land to Smith and Sem Limited. This is what our MIF funds are. It's a $74,000 loan, 20-year amortization with a balloon payment at 10 years, interest rate 4%. We'll get a second position on the land and building located at 2011 College Way. That's right next to Radio Shack. Okay, and we're going to have a 1% origination fee on the loan amount and a personal guarantee from the borrower and key man life insurance. And the sources of funding for that whole project are first position, Farmers State Bank of Underwood at $410,400. Shared second position, West Central Initiative at $75,000. Shared second position, City of Fergus Falls MIF loan at $74,000. And the reason we're at $74,000 is if we were at 75 or more, we would have to do a business subsidy agreement and we'd have to hold a public hearing. And so we avoid that when we can. Closing of the loan is planned for early April. And since it's under 75 again, it's not, doesn't require a public hearing. And we're just informing you of that participation with those funds.
Any questions of Gordon, Rob?
Yeah, does that include any of the HUD monies?
No,
This
is state Minnesota, let's see, investment fund.
Yeah.
And there's federal monies and there's state monies. But this is a different fund. And this fund's at about 800,000 now that we have available. One thing here is it's interesting, you know, you can do services. We used it for industries. You can't use it for retail.
Okay, another question on it. You know, we've had a discussion recently ongoing about childcare. It's been growing. Amy had a conference that I think you hosted, or
With United Way.
yeah. And so one of the questions that arose, Gordon, was in the funding from the city side, could we designate criteria that would help us to make it more, to be a friendlier loan pool for those that wanted to work with developing a childcare facility? Or can we encourage certain types of endeavors, and can we also, that's the first part, like childcare, you know, loans for that. Could we prioritize that as a council, saying we want to do more of that? And secondly, could we designate areas like the downtown that we're focusing on for our master plan as priority areas for some of the loans that we look at, you know, just the criteria?
Well, I don't think there's any problem with having an emphasis on certain development areas. As it relates to nonprofits, I'm looking at Amy, based on our new guidelines. What does it say about?
Well, even just included in the packet was the state guidelines that we have to follow in addition, separate from the business subsidy. So, you know, and look at eligible projects. They're evaluated on similar things, but they're different. The only things that are explicitly excluded from use are casinos and there's one other thing that can't be used
retail.
Here. Beyond retail, yeah, operation, construction, or expansion of a casino, a sports facility related to a professional sports team are the two big ineligible activities. So
yeah, and I understand
right.
that there are things you can't do. What I guess I'm asking
Right.
is, can you weight things with certain criteria that you'd like to have priorities as we decide on.
Yeah, those are certainly
That's
council
fine.
priorities. We just have to ensure that it's eligible under the limitations
Yep.
of use.
Yep.
And, as we talk about the downtown and riverfront master plan, that is one of the areas we're looking at, is how to, incent or support investments that are identified in there, which could be everything from, facade improvements to, wholesale redevelopment of certain areas. So those will be recommendations within that plan.
And one of those considerations was conformance with your planning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like it to be on the radar, and I don't know, Your Honor, how that we can do more of that. But I think the fact the city council has a certain amount of power, or at least influence, to help encourage, especially in this case, childcare, the development of more childcare facilities in Fergus Falls. And in fact, we do support busing, transportation. We support the senior center. And one of the major problems, as I've understood from this conference that Amy hosted, was that, with United Way, was that we have many people turned away from childcare regularly in Fergus. There just aren't enough facilities. And the possibility of the city being involved in a larger scope on facilities that are more profitable because you can put more under one roof, things they can share, is a very real possibility in our helping the economic climate of Fergus to be ready to receive businesses. So I'm kind of looking for us to work on this more as a council and look at it. Maybe a future session we could do as a work session or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, Amy.
Mayor, council members, with a joint meeting that was referenced at the committee of the whole with the EIC, because this has been a strategic priority identified by the Economic Improvement Commission, that could be a great topic to talk about in 2 weeks at the work session when we have the joint meeting.
Sure.
Or committee of the whole, sorry, committee of the whole, joint meeting.
Yeah, and if it takes more than that, we could perhaps do it later, but that's fine.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks, Amy. Any other Derek?
Just another add-on to that. I know at one point, West Central Initiative used to have an appetite for helping out on daycare centers in the past, so that would be one other alliance that could be partnered with.
Mayor, council members, yeah, we certainly are working with West Central very closely on this, and they've just received another state grant to fund some forgivable loans for in-home licensed childcare providers. So they'll be launching that in this month is their goal, to have that second pool of funds available.
Any other questions for Gordon or Amy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Under reports of staff, in a minute, I know that it's not on the agenda, but I see our library directors here. Do you want to give us just a real brief update on the legislative status? I believe that it's in both the House and Senate.
Pretty much provided the update.
Well, it's good news. It's good news. And we'd like to get your face on TV.
Yeah. Thanks. So yes, the sales tax legislation for the expansion and remodel of the library is in the House and the Senate bills. And so we're very excited about that and watching that move forward. I don't know, any other comments, Andrew?
Yeah, I can add just a little bit. House File 4 is the omnibus tax bill that they're using to move this forward this session, and House File 4 was approved by the full House, and it was heard in the Senate today. It's been read twice. Today was the third reading. Unfortunately, there were amendments throughout the day to the bill, so now it'll have to go back to the House after the Senate approves it. But our language remains in every version that's been discussed thus far. So if they and when they come up with a version that both bodies agree on, which I thought they were close today, then we are good to go. But it's not a surprise that there's going to be amendments still. The Senate hasn't had a chance to do that, and we're still really early in the session for them to get it through. So, because when it does pass both bodies, you have that 32 or 72-hour, 3-day window for the governor to act on the bill. So it does not come as a surprise that it didn't happen today, but I was optimistic this morning. So we will see it go back through the process and maybe on try number 2.
Sure. Well, thanks, Andrew. That's great. Thank you, Aaron, for all your work
Thank you.
on that. That's good news. Is there any old or unfinished business? I don't believe there's any new business.
Your Honor, members of the council, I think at the beginning we forgot to talk about the committee of the whole recap, and I think it's probably important to fill everybody in on on some of the actions that we took earlier, some of the discussion earlier, so if I could, real quickly, I'll keep it to 2 minutes. Tonight's Committee of the Whole meeting, before this meeting, we talked about the Mayor's Kirkbride Advisory Committee, and the discussion centered around turning that group into a potential task force to address the east and west attached buildings at the Regional Treatment Center, because those are the two structures that were not identified within the letter of intent that we accepted at our last council meeting. So there'll be more discussion on that and something before the council in 2 weeks to talk about what the specific task of that task force could be and who those members should be. So the mayor will work on that over the next few weeks. The next thing we talked about was building access and tours, and the result of that discussion was simply to maintain course as it is today, not allowing the tours. There's so many things going on at the Regional Treatment Center, including that exclusivity period with the developer, and a lot of deadlines we have to meet. So it was decided, or the consensus, I guess, was to not do anything with that and maintain status quo on the tours. And then briefly mentioned that the city staff will be working with Stantec to update and categorize numbers on demolition. We're targeting a 2018 bonding bill request, and we need to have all the numbers, preservation, demolition, and redevelopment information at our disposal to make a thorough and well thought out proposal to the legislature for that 2018 request. So we will be looking to get numbers associated with demolition. It's not committing to demolition, and it's not necessarily moving down that path, but it's giving us all the information that we're going to need to look at all of our options as we move forward here in 2017. And then finally, Steve Erickson, who was the chair of the Dairy Property Task Force that was established a few months ago, gave a due diligence report update to the council with a lot of good information. And it was decided at the meeting that we would act on that or look at it more in 2 weeks, giving the council and members of the public time to digest that and to review it, since it was just introduced this evening. So that's the amount of material we covered in 40 minutes or 45 minutes, and a lot of good stuff.
Anyone else have anything to add to that recap of the Committee of the Whole? Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Is there anything else to come before the council? If not, we will be adjourned.
Brian?